Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be making a tier list about which character can benefit from using a break effect rope compared to using any other main stat rope. And this video, I will just be going off without any script, so you might hear me stumble a lot. Sorry about that, apologize in ahead. So yeah, let's get started. Oh, before we get started, actually, I want to make clear that in my previous video, I mentioned about wind break do more damage than quantum break. Now, this is actually have a little bit detail that I need to share with you first. Wind break only do more damage than quantum break if they are at 5 stacks, meaning that you can break the enemy once and apply the 3 stack of wind shear first, and then when the boss regenerate their toughness bar back, the wind shear will have 1 turn left. And you have to break that boss again within 1 turn so that the wind shear does not go away. And then you will reapply that wind shear again to refresh the duration. But this time you stack it up to 5 stacks of wind shear instead of 3 stacks. So if you are able to apply the wind shear up to 5 stacks, then that will make wind break to do more damage compared to quantum break. But if you cannot, meaning if you only have 3 stacks, it will actually do very similar damage to quantum break and actually a little bit slightly less damage. So that's why in this video I want to make it clear that wind element break can only surpass quantum break in a niche situation. So normally quantum break will do more damage. On top of that, building break effect can also increase the action delay caused by quantum break, making quantum break much better than wind break. And that's why in here I will rate quantum break higher than the wind break right now, making it the ranking goes like the following. Alright, so now let us get into the tier list. So first of all, this tier list is not about which character has the best break damage or which character is the best breaker. But instead, it is a tier list about how much benefit they can get from using a break effect main stat rope in compared to any other main stat rope as opportunity cost. And also the tier list from the left to right also matter, even though they're within the same tier. So first off, we have the Fire MC here. Now the Fire MC, her role is to be a tank who can taunt the enemy and survive the hit. As long as they don't get one-shotted, they can always get healed back by your healer. So their job is basically just there to provoke the enemy and survive, right? So that means it's basically a defense rope versus a break effect rope. Which one is better? Well, you don't really need the defense rope in order to survive the hit as long as you have a proper build on them. And also their ultimate is usually not that great compared to most other characters, so that you don't really need an energy regeneration rope on them either. So making it a break effect rope will benefit them the most in this situation, because now they can do a lot more damage while still doing their job properly as a tank. That's why I am putting the Fire MC at the top left here, being the character that benefit the most by using a break effect main stack rope. Moving on to the next, we have Serval. Serval, her role is the DPS. Now, let me explain a little bit about DPS role, because the DPS role can get a little bit tricky here. For DPS, their job is basically to do as much damage as possible, right? Very straightforward. So that means it's basically which main stat of the rope can give you more damage overall. This is not a straight up yes or no question to which rope to do. It needs a lot more testing to be done in the late game gear. But as for now, I believe the stronger you are as a DPS, meaning that the more multiplier you have in your skill kit, and also the more crit and crit damage, and also element damage that you gain, then using the attack rope will give you a better bonus of the damage boost. However, if you are a weak DPS, then in that case, attack rope is not going to give you as much of damage boost compared to the stronger DPS. So in those cases, a break effect rope will help them to do more damage, especially if they're being one of the top tier of the elements. And also, for break effect damage, the higher your own character level is, the more damage it will scale. Versus the attack rope, the more crit you have, the higher the damage it will scale. Again, there will need to be more testing to be done in the late game gear in order to confirm this. But for Serval, she is a unique case because her ultimate can infinitely extend the shock debuff that apply to the enemy, even though for the shocks that were caused by breaking the enemy. Meaning that if you're using Serval, you can break the enemy the first time using Serval herself to apply the shock damage over time for 2 turns, and then you can spam in her ultimate and infinitely extend this shock to last for the entire fight without having Serval to break for the second time. So that means if you're running Serval with break effect build, you can also have another character in your same team to also build break effect and have that character, for example Fire MC here, to do the breaking starting the second time until the end, the rest of the fight, but have Serval to break for the first time. So that way, the enemy will have 2 damage over time on them, and that will help you to do massive amount of damage over time every single turn that the boss move. And that's why I put Serval up here all the way to the S tier, right under Fire MC, and I actually think they should be at the same position. And also Serval, she is not a very strong tier 1 DPS herself. That's why in a fight where when you're going against a boss that's not weak against lightning element, you will most likely not gonna use Serval in that fight. So that's why you don't really have to swap the gear when you're building Serval. You can just have a dedicated break effect main stat rope on Serval and also the Fire MC, so that you never have to swap out. And next we have Qing Que. Qing Que, she is also a weak DPS, so that means usually you will not want to use her in a boss fight that's not weak against Quantum, and meaning that she can have a dedicated break effect rope. And also, like I said before, the weaker the DPS you are, the more you benefit from using a break effect main stack rope compared to an attack main stack rope. And also Qing Que being a quantum element here, meaning she will do tons of damage on top of a big action delay on the boss. So that will also increase your own survivability as well. Her break is actually not that bad because her enhanced blast attack is able to do 2 times the toughness bar, and her ultimate is AoE ultimate, which also do 2 times toughness bar, making her a decent breaker. Now moving down to the A tier list, we have Shang being the top left here. If you watch my previous video, you should know how strong and how broken Shang is as being a breaker. She can break 7 bars on her own in a single turn by using skill, ultimate, and skill. And also she's being a physical unit, meaning she will do the most break damage out of all elements. So that's why she's being the top, she's being the most left in this tier. However, again, she's a main DPS role, meaning that at endgame gear, using an attack rope might, okay, the keyword is might, give her a better damage boost compared to break effect rope, which we don't know yet, and we still need testing. So a big disclaimer, this tier list can very much change depending on how good the DPS perform at the endgame gear, each one of them. But considering how strong Shang is being a DPS, you will most likely want to use her in a boss fight that is not weak against physical, if she is your only main DPS that you're invested in. So that's why Shang is not being on top of the S tier, but instead she is at the A tier right now. Next we have Sampo. He is a debuffer who will be applying a debuff on the enemy and then increase your damage over time. Now if you are pairing him up with a team of damage over time applier such as Serval and Kafka, which are coming in the future, then his role is mainly to be a debuffer, not a DPS, and he will want to have an effect hit rate and such to help your team do more damage in that case. So that means he will be relying so much on his ultimate, and he want energy regeneration rope in that case. But if you are not pair him with any other damage over time applier, then he can be a main damage dealer himself because of his passive applying wind shear, and that wind shear actually do quite a lot of damage at max stacks. And also on top of his ultimate, increase the damage over time caused by break as well. So that means he can also have a break effect main stat rope and to fulfill the DPS role by breaking the enemy and dealing a lot of damage over time. Next up with Heng. Heng, he is also a wind element character, meaning he will be doing the number 3 best damage out of all 7 characters, but because he's a DPS role also, and also because he is actually a quite decent character that you want to use in most boss fight, even though they are not weak against wind. So pretty much the same reason as Shang why they are in the A tier list here. It will all depend on how good the damage boost is when you're switching between a attack main stat role compared to a break effect main stat role, and which one do more damage. But the attack main stat role will give them a more general use purpose overall. Next up we have Himeko. Now Himeko, she is being fire element, meaning that she is doing number 4 break damage out of the 7 elements. So that's why she is already 1 rank down compared to the wind and physical. But the thing is, Himeko, she is not a great DPS, unfortunately. But yeah, she's not a great DPS compared to most other DPS here. And that's like for example Hook, which is also a fire DPS character. Among these two, because Himeko is the weaker one compared to Hook, that's why I'm ranking Himeko above Hook, because she will get a much better benefit from using a break effect main stat role compared to an attack main stat role. Both Himeko and Hook, they break the enemy toughness about the same. That 4 bar and 5 bar, when it comes to breaking the enemy, it does not really change that much with your break timing. 4 bar is actually good enough to control the break timing. And because of those reasons, I am ranking Himeko 1 tier higher than Hook, as if I have a choice to pick between Himeko and Hook, which one to build break effect if I can only choose one, I would choose Himeko in this case, because again, she is a weaker DPS compared to Hook. Moving down to the B tier list. Now the B tier list, they generally do not want break effect, but you can consider it in a niche situation. So for example, with Asta, who is a buff support. So in general, you want to have a energy regeneration rope on Asta so that she can spam her ultimate as much as possible to do her job properly by buffing your entire team. However, in a niche situation where in your entire team there are no one else who can run break effect build, and you need that extra little damage from breaking the enemy in order to 3-star the chamber. So in that case, you can consider building break effect main stat rope on Asta to help with your team's overall damage. But in general, again, you want energy regeneration, not break effect. And next we have Clara. Clara, she is a DPS role, being a physical element, meaning she will do the most break damage. However, first of all, Clara, she is very strong DPS herself. So meaning you will want to bring her in every single fight if you have her build, just like Shang. So that way, that was already one reason why an attack role would be better on Clara than any other role. Second, Clara actually is not a good breaker, even though she can break a lot of bar by herself. Now, let me explain why. First of all, her basic attack and her skill only do 1-time break bar, because her skill is being an AoE skill. And her ultimate does not do any damage at all. So meaning that when it comes to her turn, no matter what she do, she will always only breaking 1 bar in her turn. Despite the fact that she can counter the enemy, which will also do 1 break bar every single counter. But because you cannot control the timing of the counter, so most of the time, you might be countering the enemy and not breaking the enemy, but when it comes to your turn, and you want to break the enemy, but the enemy, let's say, have like 2 bar instead of 1 bar, she cannot break that 2 bar on her own in a single turn. And then whoever your teammate comes next will most likely break the bar accidentally before her. So that's why she is not a good breaker, even though she can potentially break a lot of bars on her own, but they are uncontrollable. And that's another reason why she prefer a attack role over break effect role here. With all those reasons, she is listed at the bottom of the B tier list here. And now moving down to the C tier, or which only Natasha is being the only one here. 99% of the time you don't want break effect rope, but there is 1% of the time you can consider building break effect. So why Natasha do not want break effect rope? First of all, she is a healer, meaning that her job is to heal your team, to keep your team healthy and survive. So she wants more HP, or she wants more energy regeneration so that she can spam her ultimate more for more often heal. Either way is fine. But she don't want break effect because, second reason, her skill kit is very bad. Actually, she is actually one of the worst breaker in the entire game. She only have her basic attack, which can only do one time break bar, and nothing else. That's it. So she is in the similar shoes with Clara, which only can do one bar in their turn. But she's worse than Clara because she don't even have a counter anymore to break the enemy at all. So it's very hard to control her break timing if you're using Natasha and want to break with her. The only 1% time where you can consider building break effect on her is, again, no one else in your team is building break effect, and you need that extra little damage to restart the chamber. And literally no one else can consider building break effect. So in that case, perhaps you can build break effect on Natasha, hoping that she can still have enough heal to keep your team survive, and you have a good control of breaking the enemy bar with her basic attack only. If you can satisfy those two requirements, then Natasha can have a break effect rope and do a much better job on top of being just a healer, because now she can actually do damage as well. And the reason why Natasha is in the C tier list, not in the D tier list, is simply because she is being a physical element character, meaning that if she can trigger break, she will do the most damage out of all other elements. Alright, so moving down to the next D tier list, which you never want to build any break effect at all whatsoever. So first we have Bronya. Bronya, even though she's a wind element, meaning that her break damage is being number 3 out of the 7 elements, her skill kit is just like Natasha, where she only have her basic attack to do 1 bar of the break. So she is one of the worst breaker in the game, and she is very hard to control the break timing. Also, she is a buffer support role, and her ultimate is very important in order to do her job properly, because her ultimate is a very strong damage buff. So in most, I would say not most, in 100% situation, you want to have an energy regeneration rope on Bronya, no exception. And because main stats doesn't matter for support, so you don't need the base stats, the extra base stats. And break effect, because she's a bad breaker, and because you want energy regeneration rope, so break effect is out of the list either. Next, we have Seele. Seele, she is a DPS role, right? So you might be wondering, why is the quantum element being the number 2 break damage, and a DPS role here being on the very bottom here, but not anywhere in the A tier or B tier? That's where all the DPS goes. Why Seele is at the bottom? Well, right now she is the number 1, hands down, no competition DPS out of everyone else. She's tier 0. That's why I can pretty much, almost like 99.99%, if not 100% sure, that having an attack main stat rope on Seele, you will do much more damage boost compared to a break effect main stat rope here. And it's pretty much the same reason goes with Jingyuan. Jingyuan, he is also a very strong DPS, both in single target and AoE. And because of that reason, he prefer a attack main stat rope over a break effect main stat rope. However, there's another reason. The reason is he is being lightning element. And for lightning element, we already have Serval, who will always want to build break effect main stat on the rope here. And you don't want any other lightning element character to build break effect anymore, because Serval exists, and she is the number 1 tier among all the lightning character. So that's why for all the lightning character, I am putting them all the way to the D tier list, simply because Serval exists. And then the rest of them are all the ice element character, which you should never build it, period. The reason is very simple. Ice element, they do number 6 of the break damage out of the 7 element. And break effect stats does not help at all in any shape or form for their freezing. It will not increase the freeze turn, it will not increase the freeze frequency, it will not do anything at all. So building break effect on ice character will only increase their break damage which is very low to begin with, that you are not worth investing in at all. So just don't break it. Just don't build break effect, period. And very last, we have imaginary. Now, I want to make a special note about this. Imaginary, even though I'm putting it in the very bottom here, I actually does not mean it is worse than B tier. I actually want imaginary to have their own specific place in this tier. I just don't know if I should put it in the middle or on the top or in the bottom. Okay, so just know imaginary is not bad for break effect. They are having their own special place because for imaginary, you are not building break effect for damage, because their damage is literally the number 7 out of the 7 elements, meaning they are doing the worst, the least damage. But what's good about break effect on imaginary character is that they actually have the biggest action delay out of all the 7 elements, even a bigger delay than quantum element here. And also, when they break the enemy, they will also apply a slow debuff on the enemy on top of the biggest action delay. So when you're building any imaginary character, which right now we only have Welt and no one else, you are actually going for that biggest action delay, not the damage. And in a niche comp situation, like for example, Seele, if you have her E6. So with her E6, after using the ultimate, every time you attack with your teammate attack, they will take an extra 18% of Seele's ultimate damage as bonus damage. That is huge, and that only lasts for 1 turn. It's a debuff applied on the enemy that lasts for 1 turn, meaning that if you are able to break the enemy with your imaginary character who is building on break effect, they will get delayed so much, and also apply the slow and imprison. So that, and then chain that into your Seele ultimate, and they'll have your entire team to keep punching the enemy non-stop before the debuff is gone. In that situation, a break effect imaginary character is very strong in that team comp. But because that's a niche team comp, so generally you are not going with break effect build on imaginary character if they benefit better from another main stat. So in this situation, for Welt, his main role is being a debuffer support, which means he will rely on his ultimate more so that he can constantly spamming his ultimate to apply the debuff on the boss, which will increase the damage taken from an entire team. So that's why a energy regeneration rope is preferred for Welt in most situations. But in a niche comp situation, you can consider building break effect rope on him because he's being an imaginary element. So that sums up with my tier list here. I would say anyone in the S tier here, I'm pretty sure that they will not change their position even though in the endgame tier. I do think these 3 characters, they absolutely want break effect, main stat rope, if you're ever going to build them. However, for all the DPS that are in the A tier and the B tier, so meaning everyone here except Asta, right? They will most likely change depending on how good they can perform with the endgame gear when they're swapping between a attack main stat versus a break effect main stat rope and see which one do more damage. If break effect main stat rope wins, then their position can stay here. But if attack main stat wins, then they will immediately goes down to the B tier list, where you just want to go with attack main stat and not break effect, because again, their job is to do as much damage as possible. So they would just take whichever main stats that will give them the more DPS in the end. So finally, I just want to say that the purpose of this video is not telling you, hey, you should always build break effect on this character because I tell you so. But more like I want you to know what is my thought process when I am thinking about whether a character should be building break effect. That can apply to any character in here, and that same logic can also apply to any future character that we have. So I hope my video helps you have a better understanding when it comes to determining whether or not you should build break effect, and you should be the one making this decision. Thank you so much all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.